One thing I've realized quite recently is that I actually enjoy non-traditional fighter more than the typical 1 versus 1 shtick that we've had for so many years now. And one of them that really stood out to me that I played for the longest time was Dissidia Final Fantasy and Dissidia Duodecim 02 for the PSP. Jesus. Now, those games actually made me feel like it was worth buying the system, because there weren't that many games for this thing that I actually enjoyed, aside from, quite entertainingly, Crisis Core Final Fantasy, another in the big-ass franchise. And during my playthrough with these games, I always felt that they would be amazing console fighters. Seeing, you know, the typical Square Enix quality in the big screen. Or small screen back in those days, 2011, I'm a bit unsure. But 7 years later, as we are now in 2018, we're now getting Dissidia NT for the PlayStation 4. And so I played the beta, and did it live up after all of these years of hoping for something like this? Yeah. I have always been in love with the Final Fantasy series. The first one I played was the 10th installment. After that, I went through the 5th, 4th, Tactics and the first games on the Game Boy Advance. I didn't finish the second one. If you've tried it, then you should know why. Following after those games, I played FFX2, FF12, and then we arrived to the 13th game, which pretty much almost killed my enthusiasm for the series. And then they made a sequel to that game, and a follow-up after that. They really just shanked themselves in the kneecaps, didn't they? Some people enjoy these games, so whatever. A couple of years flew by and I wanted to return to this franchise, but I had no idea how. I could try out the 7th game, I thought to myself, but I instead jumped on the MMORPG A Realm Reborn, and I instantly loved it again. The fantasy setting, the real ass summons and all of the jobs, I adored it! What I am trying to say is that I am someone who grew up with the series, ended up hating it for a while, then returning with a smile on my face. And it really helped with the fact that Final Fantasy 15 was so extremely different from the bland death, making me feel all the better for it. The characters is what I love the most when it comes to these games, and Dissidia is all about that. If the MMO is a love letter to the franchise, then Dissidia is here for the personalities. Tons of character interactions, epic transformations, super moves, it is all there! But not here. Yeah, when information started to rise from the darkness when this game was in development, one could easily see that it would be quite different from the PSP versions, and it did make me quite nervous. Now it is focused on 3 versus 3 rather than the typical 1v1. Gone are the transformations, for the most part, and no overly dramatic super move in sight. Only one HB attack can be used during a match, and every character was now split into 4 types. Vanguard, the tanks of the party if you will, the assassins, the DPS dudes, marksmen, everyone should understand what those guys will be doing, and specialists, being sort of a combination of assassin and marksman. All of this got me worried, but then I played the beta, and I have no problems with these changes now. Maybe it's because I played the MMO for quite some time, but I really enjoy having a group of a tank, DPS, and a support, and I feel like it really works here, and not only because of the gameplay stuff. Final Fantasy has always been about teamwork, so why not bring it over here as well, in a more action-oriented gameplay style? I will also say that I do prefer the 3 versus 3 now than it was back in the PSP games, and that's because the big arenas made it so that sometimes it could turn into a game of tag if the opponent just started running off to find one of those EX mode multipliers or whatever they were called to fill up your gauge to get super mode or whatever. But here, as there are 6 people in the arena rather than 2, you have to constantly stay on your toes. Because they can come from everywhere. And they can sometimes even be 2 versus 1. It's pretty amazing. So, let's head into the gameplay. Before heading into a match, you select your character and the battle gear, if you will, which consists of EX skill, which can be all from healing your team, put a debuff on your enemy, etc. Your costume and weapon, which I guess will only be cosmetic, with no changes whatsoever. I didn't really get anything I could use during my gameplay time, so just take my word for it. And finally, the 1 HB attack that you can use during the game. In the PSP games, you only had to push a direction on the analog stick and then push square to get a different HB attack, but here you can only use 1. Which at first, as I said, I was afraid that it would limit the game and just be a bad choice. But as I have played more and more, I started to think more before the matches on which attack I wanted to use dependent on my playstyle, as they are quite different. Plus, you really don't want to spam these as they are the most easily punishing moves in the game. Okay, for those of you who doesn't follow, there are two types of attacks. Bravery moves, which will fill up your bravery meter when connected to an enemy. They change depending on directional button presses, both on the ground and in the air, and when you fill up this number, the HP attack will take that amount of damage to your enemy. Easy to understand once you get the hang of it. Some characters can be a bit special in this regard though. For example, if you push back on the analog stick and then use a bravery attack with Jack, you'll do a special block. These are just small fighter related stuff that you'll learn when you play as these iconic individuals. So no need to go through the entire cast. Though what is important to note with these guys is that all of them have their own gimmick, if you will. All of Ishtola's bravery moves will have some sort of debuff effect on the enemy. If she puts down an ice trap and someone walks on it, they will be stuck for a couple of seconds, giving you plenty of time to punish them. Or her speedy rock shot adds slow on the opponent, making them move slower. Every character also have their own EX skill, meaning that you can choose two before a match, while the third will be a character exclusive. And the Mikote's EX skill is to heal everyone on her team as long as she holds down the button. Plus, many of her HP attacks actually heals 1/3 of the damage output over to her mates, making her the support of the group. Golbez, my main man, starts off with a Shadow Dragon that boosts all of his magic spells in some way, just like in Final Fantasy IV, as he is one of the few villains that just starts off with using all of his power, rather than waiting until he's half beaten to death and then changing form. But if you damage the Dark Knight by taking down 1000 of his HP, you pretty much defeat his dragon, making him much weaker than he started out with. His EX skill is Binding Cold, stunning enemies for 4 seconds if connected. Though if his dragon is gone, the move will change to the summoning of the Dark Beast instead. Have to admit though, it feels like some characters are getting more love than others, where Ishtola has her debuffs and healing and Golbez has his dragon mode and Binding Cold. Jack pretty much only have his EX skill, that is making him special, which allows him to cancel his bravery attacks to combo into something else. It's good, but it really isn't that personality driven, which is a shame. I will say though that personality is really in the moveset for this cast. For example, one of Golbez's HP attacks, which is sadly I couldn't do because it's not in the beta, is the same attack he uses during his boss fight when he kills off all of Cecil's friends, Black Fang. And in this game, it is a 4-second channeling move that hits the opponent no matter how far away they are, and if Golbez has his dragon, it will slow the victim down during the channeling part, as it is possible to dodge it with a dash. I can't wait to use Binding Cold on players and then following up with a Black Fang. True Golby style. I also adore the fact that you can get different costumes and weapons for the characters, like Cloud's Advent Children gear, Golbez's getup from the introduction cinematic of the DS game, a game-accurate style for Jack and Tidus, and Blind Ishtola, etc. many more. I did get a couple of weapons in the beta. I couldn't use them because they were for characters I couldn't play as, but I got them from what seems to be loot boxes. I will also say that when I first started the game I didn't have that much fun because the controls are really weird, but after a couple of matches I got used to them. Plus there is a very extensive yet weirdly not that steep tutorial here. It will help you a bit, but it's very, very weird. That's the best way I can describe it. And the summons, I was worried that they would annoy me because they are very cinematic at the beginning when you first summon them, having their introduction, and then they get into the arena to do damage. And it didn't annoy me as much, but I will say it's really cool to actually see the summons around when you're fighting and they attack you and they can just do all that sort of jazz. It's really cool. I will also say that it would be really cool to be able to attack them to shorten the time that they're there, but you can't do that sadly. But, you know, crossing my fingers for something in the future. Plus, we've seen that there will be some sort of mode like that in the trailers. So, yeah. Bit unsure if we'll get more primals in the future, though what we do know is that there will be 6 DLC characters. 4 men and 2 ladies. 6 characters. We don't know who they are yet, so I made a short list in no particular order of who I want. Arden Isunia. I feel that it's important that 15 gets a bit more representation. Heck, they haven't even finished a full game with all of its DLC and all. And Arden would be great. Don't want to go through too many things, but I feel that he could be a good assassin class or specialist. Second will be Rydia, the summoner from Mist Village. She was always my favorite girl from the 4th game, and I am well aware that there are already 3 characters in Dissidia from FF4, but come on, it's Rydia! Who doesn't like her? bit unsure what her moveset could be, aside from the fact that she's a definite marksman, but I feel that her EX skill should have something to do with the summons. Would be badass, plus we could have her instead of Yuna. Nothing against her, but why have Yuna when we could have freaking Oren? This guy's a legend, this guy's probably the biggest badass of all the badasses. He overpowered fucking Disney man over here with one hand. Oren is the man. And the other woman we would have would be lovely Aranea Highwind. She had the coolest boss fight in FF15, so I ended up liking her quite a bit. Bit unsure how Kain and Aranea would differ from one another, hell they even have the same last name. But I guess where the Dragoon would jump up in a fast fashion, Aranea could do her pole dancing thingy with it when she's in the sky. Jumping full screen, nah. Another thing that is full screen right now. Squere. I like this guy way more than Cloud, probably because I played Crisis Core and not the PS1 game, but he would be a good choice in my opinion. To be honest, Tifa will probably be one of the DLCs, let's face it, it's Tifa. But Zack will always be the hero in my heart. And finally, as I felt that Final Fantasy 15 needed more love, I believe the same goes for the 14th game, the MMO. There are better villains, but if anyone will be chosen, I will guess that it would be Gaius von Balzar, the first antagonist of our Realm Reborn. That's my wish list. If you have any characters I didn't mention, then please write it down below, so that I can read through it and see if, you know, I would agree with you or even change my own list. There are more stuff I could talk about when it comes to this game, but as the game is just around the corner, I'll rather wait till it comes out so I can go more in depth. Now, too long didn't watch. If you skipped from the intro to this part, then good timing. I thoroughly enjoyed the beta. A couple of things I'm a bit unsure of and a bit nervous about, like the loot boxes. It seems a bit nervous about that. And the netcode is good, not perfect, it's good. Like 80% of my matches was pretty good, but when it lags, and this 20% of my time, oh god, that was horrible. So I'm crossing my fingers that they will improve it, or that it will not be like that when Dissidia NT is coming out on January the 30th. So, until then, I'm KingJGrim, or the guy who played 2 days straight on one of my play sessions for Final Fantasy Realm Reborn, whatever you prefer, I don't recommend it. And I'll see you guys next time.